He accepted the food with both hands, the way you do when you know you don't deserve to ask for more. It was a piece of cornbread wrapped in a torn page from a school notebook, still warm, smelling faintly of salt and smoke. She didn't look at him when she handed it over. She never did. Kindness in that place was safer when it didn't ask to be noticed. "I'll pay you back," he said, embarrassed by how fast he was eating. Then, because hunger makes promises reckless, he added, half laughing, half desperate, "I'll marry you when I'm rich." She froze not because of the words, but because of the certainty in his voice, as if saying it made the future solid, as if it couldn't break. She folded the empty paper carefully and tucked it into her pocket. Neither of them knew what that promise would cost. Neither of them knew who would keep if town had learned how to look abandoned. Without ever quite emptying itself, factories crouched along the river like exhausted animals, their windows punched out years ago, their names flaking from rusted signs no one bothered to remove. Trains still passed through, but they didn't stop. They only slowed, as if even steel understood there was nothing here worth claiming for long. Asha lived 3 blocks from the old mill, in a narrow house that leaned slightly to the left, like it had given up arguing with gravity. Inside, everything had a second job. Chairs doubled as ladders. Jars became storage for nails, buttons, coins that no longer matched any currency in circulation. Silence, most of all, did the work of protection. You didn't announce your needs. You didn't invite attention. You endured. Her grandmother, Miss Evelyn, believed deeply in stretching. Stretching meals, stretching time, stretching disappointment until it fit inside a prayer. On Sundays, Asha helped at the church kitchen not because it paid, but because leftovers were easier to explain when you were already there. During the week, she mended hems, took in sleeves, patched coats that had lived too many winters. She learned early how to make herself small, without disappearing. Joan arrived like most things did in that town, briefly, and without context. He started showing up behind the school gym in the afternoons, sitting on the cracked concrete steps with his backpack between his feet, waiting for someone to tell him where to go next. His clothes were clean, but worn thin in places you only noticed if you knew how to look. He ate fast when he had food, like it might change its mind. Asha noticed him because she noticed everything. The way his eyes tracked the doors when teachers passed. The way he pretended to tie his shoes when groups of kids walked by. Hunger, she knew. Not just the stomach kind, the kind that made you restless even when you sat still. You shouldn't, her grandmother said the first time Asha mentioned him. Not sharply, not unkindly, just with the tired certainty of someone who had learned where generosity broke. Strays don't stay, Miss Evelyn added, and what you give away doesn't come back. Food was counted in that house. Cornbread meant to last the night was cut carefully, portions squared off like something official. Asha nodded when she was warned. She always nodded, but nodding had never meant agreement. It meant understanding the cost. The first time she slipped Jonah food, it was half a biscuit wrapped in a napkin she'd taken from the church kitchen. She handed it to him without meeting his eyes, the way people pass contraband. He didn't thank her. He just ate. After that, it became a pattern. Not daily, never predictable, but often enough that Jonah began to wait for her. Sometimes she brought fruit. Sometimes a sandwich missing its crust. She never explained. He never asked. The afternoon she gave him the cornbread, the sky was low and metallic, threatening rain without committing to it. Asha had written an essay that day in English class where I see myself in 10 years. She'd written carefully, truth trimmed down until it sounded acceptable. The paper came back marked with a red X at the top. The teacher's comment brief and dismissive to vague. Needs ambition. She tore the page out before she got home. Didn't want it lying around like an accusation. Jonah was waiting, hunched against the wind. When she reached into her bag, her fingers brushed the foil-wrapped cornbread her grandmother had packed for dinner. She hesitated. She heard Miss Evelyn's voice. She felt the evening stretch ahead of her empty plate. Quiet stomach, no complaints allowed. Then Jonah looked up. She took out the cornbread, unwrapped it. The smell rose between them, warm, grounding, unmistakably meant to last. She wrapped it again, this time in the torn notebook page. The red X flashing briefly before it disappeared under grease. Here, she said. Jonah stared at it like it might be a trick. When he took it, he used both hands. "I'll pay you back," he said, already eating. Crumbs fell onto the concrete. "I swear, one day I'll be rich." And then, he laughed, embarrassed, reckless with hunger. Then I'll marry you. The words landed strangely. Not romantic, not cruel, just heavy, like something said easily to be taken back. Asha didn't laugh. She watched him eat, watched the future she wasn't allowed to imagine get folded into paper and consumed. When he finished, she took the wrapper from him and folded it carefully, smoothing it flat despite the grease. He left 3 days later. No goodbye, no note. His place behind the gym stayed empty, the concrete steps cooling into indifference. Asha waited longer than she meant to. Then she stopped. That night, her grandmother noticed Miss Evelyn didn't raise her voice. She never did. She simply cut the remaining food in half and set the smaller portion in front of Asha. Kindness costs, she said quietly. That's all I wanted you to know. Asha ate slowly. Later, alone in her room, she took the folded paper from her pocket, unfolded it. The red X stared back at her through the grease stains, the word future warped and blurred. She smoothed it flat again. Then she put it away. She didn't know why she kept it, only that throwing it out felt like erasing proof that something real had passed through her hands and left her changed. Outside, a train roared past without stopping, and the town stayed exactly where it was. 15 years pass without ceremony. No one rings a bell for survival. Time does not pause to acknowledge endurance. It moves the way it always has in that town, forward, unevenly, carrying some people out and pressing others deeper into place. Asha becomes an adult the way she learned everything else, gradually, then all at once. She never leaves, not because she doesn't want to, but because leaving requires momentum, and momentum requires someone pushing from behind. The town keeps its grip on her through small, persistent needs. An elderly neighbor whose heat gets shut off midwinter, a family whose rent jumps overnight without explanation, a school lunch program quietly cut, replaced with paperwork and promises. She steps in because no one else does. At first, it's informal, helping people fill out forms, making phone calls that go unanswered until she calls again, standing in hallways with arms crossed, refusing to be ignored. She learns which words open doors and which ones get you escorted out. She learns to speak calmly while carrying fury like a second spine. They call her a community organizer eventually. The title arrives long after the work begins. Optimism has nothing to do with it. Hope is a luxury item. What she has is familiarity with scarcity, with being overlooked, with a particular ache of watching something break slowly while everyone pretends it isn't happening. She organizes because the alternative is to witness alone. The box sits at the back of her closet. It holds things she does not label as memories. A bus ticket to nowhere, a cracked watch that never kept time right, and a folded notebook page, still faintly stained, the red X faded but stubborn. She never opens it unless she's moving apartments or making space she doesn't want to make. Even then, she touches it briefly, like checking a pulse. She does not think of Jonah, not consciously. He has become one of those figures the mind edits out a silhouette from another life, unimportant enough to forget, significant enough to leave a mark elsewhere. Jonah learns that the world has systems, and those systems have opinions. He moves through foster homes like chapters he doesn't reread. Some are kind. Some are transactional. Some mistake silence for gratitude. School is inconsistent, but numbers make sense in a way people don't. He learns early that patterns explain more than promises. Scholarships come and go. So do mentors. He fails publicly once, spectacularly drops out for a semester when his mother disappears again. The old instability resurfacing like a debt that never clears. He tells himself it's temporary. He tells himself worse things too. When it gets bad, he makes a joke out of it. When I'm rich, he says to no one in particular, this will all make sense. Rich doesn't mean yachts. It means permanence. It means not flinching when the phone rings. It means food that isn't counted. He studies economics because he wants language for what he's felt his whole life, the invisible. Machinery that decides who eats and who waits. He becomes fluent in graphs and projections, in phrases that turn suffering into manageable variables. He excels. People like him. They describe him as sharp, driven, promising. At night, when sleep refuses him, he remembers the bread, not the girl, not clearly. Her face is softened into abstraction, but the act stays vivid, warm cornbread, wrapped in paper that mattered to someone else. The absence of ceremony, the fact that she didn't ask his name, that detail lodges somewhere deep. It becomes a reference point he doesn't know he's using. Ash's grandmother dies on a Thursday. Not dramatically, not tragically, just quietly, in her chair, hands folded like she was waiting for something to finish. The house exhales afterward. Without Miss Evelyn's presence, it loses its shape. Repairs stack up faster than paychecks. The roof leaks. The pipes rattle. The place that once bent now begins to collapse. People suggest Asha leave. Start over. Go somewhere that isn't bleeding opportunity. She considers it. Seriously, for 3 nights. She lies awake making lists. What she would take. What she would abandon. On the 4th night, a family gets an eviction notice with 48 hours warning. She helps them fight it. She stays. Jonah, meanwhile, signs his name to things he doesn't fully believe in. The firm recruits him for his insight, his background, his credibility. He tells himself he can do good from inside. That influence requires proximity. That compromise is temporary. His success looks convincing. Promotions, panels, a decent apartment with light that comes in at the right angle. But something inside him thins. Each decision carries a small erosion, barely noticeable on its own. Together, they change the landscape. He tells himself this is what progress costs. The redevelopment proposal appears in Ash's inbox under a bland subject line. It promises revitalization, opportunity, renewal. The language is clean, polished, generous with future tense. She reads it twice, then a 3rd time slower. She notices what isn't mentioned. Food access, rent stabilization, ownership. The company's name means nothing to her, but the tone does. She has heard it before in grant applications that never funded anything. In speeches delivered by people who left before the consequences arrived. Meetings begin. Flyers circulate. Fear moves quietly through the town, settling into conversations, into the way people hesitate before buying groceries. Asha feels the pressure building like weather. She does not know. Jonah is on the other side of the document. Jonah does not know the town has a voice, and that it sounds like her. They are moving toward each other without intention, pulled by forces larger than memory. The kindness that once passed between them has not bloomed or paid interest. It has not returned with interest or recognition. It has only endured. Like the town, like the box in the closet, like the promise that was never meant to be kept the way it was spoken. Absence stretches things. It lengthens consequences. It makes room for reckoning, and still, neither of them sees what's coming. Jonah recognizes the town before he recognizes himself in it. The highway curves. The factories appear emptier than he remembers, or maybe just more honest about it. Rust spreads like a language no one ever bothered to translate. He tells himself this is just another site visit, another line on a schedule already to full. He is here as part of a team. He is not responsible alone. Responsibility, he has learned, is something that diffuses when enough people touch it. The municipal hall smells like old paper and burned coffee. Folding tables form a nervous rectangle at the center of the room. Fluorescent lights hum overhead, flattening everyone into the same tired shade. Residents fill the chairs along the walls, faces tightened by suspicion, hope, or both. Jonah takes his seat with the others from the firm. He opens his folder. He listens to introductions he already knows. He keeps his hands folded, visible, non-threatening. Plausible deniability has a posture, and he has practiced it. Then she stands. Asha doesn't introduce herself loudly. She doesn't need to. The room adjusts around her, the way people do when they recognize authority earned the hard way. She speaks clearly, without flourish. Her points are specific. Numbers where they matter. Stories where numbers would lie. Jonah does not recognize her face. Not yet. Time has reshaped both of them. But something in her cadence unsettles him. He feels the faint tug of familiarity and dismisses it. The mind invents connections under stress. The meeting grinds forward. Language collides with lived experience. The firm offers timelines and projections. Ash's coalition responds with consequences, families, closures, displacement measured in names, not units. The tension sharpens. Then the food arrives late. A catered tray, sweating condensation, placed awkwardly on a side table. The kind of gesture meant to soften things without meaning to. People eye it warily. Hunger is not theoretical in this room. Jonah watches as Asha moves without announcement. She takes plates, one by one, hands them first to elders, then to children. She does not direct attention to the act. She does not smile for credit. When the food thins, she pauses, calculating silently, and only then takes a plate for herself. Something in Jonah's chest tightens. He does not know why the moment lands so heavily. Only that it does. Only that he has seen this before, in a different configuration, under a different sky. When the meeting breaks, Voices rise. Chairs scrape. Jonah stands to quickly, unsettled. He tells himself to breathe, to stay professional. He drifts toward the food table, hands busy, mind loud. There's bread left. Not much. Without thinking, he wraps a piece in a scrap torn from a discarded agenda corporate letterhead, dense with bullet points and turns. Asha is there. He holds it out to her. The gesture completes itself before he understands it. Muscle memory, something older than intention. She takes it. Then she looks at the paper. The room recedes. Sound dims. She studies the torn edge, the ink, the accidental echo of another time. Her hand stills. She lifts her gaze slowly. Their eyes meet. Jonah feels the floor shift. Not collapse, just tilt. The recognition arrives not as a flood, but as a pressure behind the ribs. Warm bread. Paper that mattered. A promise made stupidly, thoughtlessly, because hunger had made him reckless. Asha reaches into her wallet. She unfolds something with care that borders on reverence. A notebook page, creased and stained, the red X faint but unmistakable. She places it beside the new paper on the table between them. No explanation. None is needed. Jonah goes still. Every version of himself he has edited out of his life steps forward at once. The boy behind the gym, the hunger, the certainty that kindness was rare and therefore unforgettable. I said something. He manages. His voice is low, unsteady. Back then, Asha nods. Once, I didn't mean. He stops. The excuses line up easily, polished from years of use. He doesn't let them speak. I remember thinking rich meant safe. That if I got there, things would. Balance. He gestures vaguely, ashamed of the abstraction. I did. He adds, quieter. Get there. Or close enough. And I help build things that do this. He doesn't say hurt you. He doesn't say this town. He doesn't say this room. He doesn't need to. Asha listens. Her face is unreadable, not cold, not kind. Present. That, more than anything, undoes him. She does not accuse him. She does not absolve him. She lets the silence do the work. That bread, she says finally, touching the old paper, costs more than you knew. He nods. He knows now. Around them, the meeting resumes in fragments. People pass. No one notices the quiet reckoning at the table. Jonah feels something settle, not relief, not forgiveness, accountability, perhaps, or the beginning of it. The papers lie side by side, one old, one new, neither about a promise anymore. They are evidence of who fed whom, of who paid first. The decision does not arrive like courage usually does in stories. There is no swelling music in Jonah's chest, no clean moment where the right thing separates itself from the rest and glows. What comes instead is fatigue bone deep, cumulative, a quiet understanding that if he continues, the shape of his life will be decided for him, and it will not be a shape he can live inside. He waits 3 days after the meeting, 3 days of reading the same internal projections again and again, tracing the polite euphemisms with his finger. Temporary displacement, market correction, food access mitigated through partnerships. He knows how the language works. He helped design it. He knows what it hides. On the 4th night, he sends the files, not dramatically, not from a burner phone in a parking garage. He uploads them from his apartment, laptop plugged in, window open to city noise that no longer comforts him. He includes nothing but the data and a brief note explaining how to read it. He does not sign his name. It takes less than 10 minutes. The consequences take longer. First, silence, meetings canceled, calls unanswered, his access revoked with clinical efficiency. Then the legal notices begin phrased carefully, threatening without heat. Friends stop replying. Colleagues distance themselves with practiced neutrality. He is told, eventually, that his trajectory at the firm is over, that his actions represent a breach of trust, that there will be repercussions. He does not argue. There is nothing left to negotiate. Back in the town, the data detonates quietly. Asha and the coalition pore over the projections late into the night, cross-referencing, verifying, arguing over margins. The numbers confirm what they already knew, but knowing and proving are not the same thing. The files give weight to intuition. They make the invisible visible. Negotiations resume, sharper now. The firm adjusts its posture. The language shifts. Concessions appear not out of generosity, but necessity. Community land trusts replace outright acquisitions. Ownership structures change. Food access protections are written in, monitored, imperfect, but enforceable. It is not a victory. It does not feel like one. People are still displaced. Some businesses do not survive the transition. Compromise leaves scars. But the town does not vanish. It is not erased quietly and sold back as a concept. Asha feels the weight of it settle slowly, not triumph, but responsibility. This is what ignorance looks like when it finally bends the world a fraction of an inch. Jonah does not attend the final meetings. He leaves the city, then the state. He takes a job that pays less, matters more, asks fewer questions. He does not follow the news from the town closely. Some distances are necessary. Before he goes, he sets up a fund small, compared to what he's walked away from, focused. Scholarships for students from towns like this, one students who know what it means to count food, to move often, to translate instability into ambition. He makes the donation anonymous, not out of shame, exactly, out of accuracy. The act is not about him. He does not reach out to Asha. He considers it, drafts messages that say too much, that nothing at all. He understands, finally, that some kindnesses are not meant to circle back into recognition. Some are meant to continue outward, detached from origin. He leaves town again. This time, it is a choice. The community kitchen opens on a gray morning. It occupies a renovated storefront near the old mill. Sunlight finds its way in through windows that had been boarded for years. The sign is modest. No slogans, just a name painted carefully by hand. Evelyn's Kitchen. Inside, the air smells like bread and onions and something steadier belonging, perhaps. Volunteers move with practiced ease. No one rushes. No one lingers too long. There are rules, but they are humane ones. On the wall near the entrance hangs a framed piece of paper, a notebook page, creased, faintly stained. A red X still visible, if you know to look. There is no caption. People ask about it sometimes. Asha shrugs. It mattered, she says. Nothing more. Years pass. The town changes, slowly. Not into something unrecognizable. Into something less fragile. Children grow up with a few more options. Elders stay housed. Hunger does not disappear, but it loses its inevitability. One evening, long after closing, Asha notices a boy lingering outside the kitchen. He hovers near the door, pretending to check his phone, then jacket, backpack to light. Hunger written not just in his posture, but in the way he waits. Unsure if waiting is allowed. She doesn't announce herself. She tears a clean sheet from the donation ledger, today's count neatly recorded, margins generous, and wraps a portion of food with practiced hands. She steps outside and presses it into his palms without looking directly at him. The boy startles. I'll pay you back, he says quickly. The words tumble out, familiar and fragile. I swear. Asha meets his eyes then. She does not smile kindly. She does not smile sadly. She smiles the way someone does when they recognize a moment for what it is. Eat first, she says. The boy hesitates. Then he nods, clutching the paper like it might vanish. Asha watches him go, then turns back toward the kitchen, toward the work that never really ends. Inside, the paper on the wall catches the light. The cycle does not close with a promise kept. It continues with a practice passed on. And that, finally, is enough.